On the evening of April 18th, 1775, hundreds of British soldiers boarded ships in Boston to row across the Charles River toward Cambridge. Their plan? March to the town of Concord under the cover of nightfall and seize the colonial weapons being stored there to prevent further resistance. But their plan did not go unnoticed. Patriot leaders in Boston caught wind of the secret mission and set out to warn their allies in the nearby town of Lexington. What happened next set off a chain of events that changed the course of American history. So far in this unit, we've seen colonists push back against British rule through protests and other forms of resistance, but now we're going to see something begin to change. Instead of avoiding conflict, colonists will start taking greater risks, even facing British troops in battle. This brings us to our lesson question for today. Why were the colonists ready to risk everything for their freedom? To find out, let's start in the town of Lexington, where it all began. On the morning of April 19th, as the sun began to rise, about 70 colonial militiamen stood here on the Lexington town green facing hundreds of British troops. Colonial militias were groups of ordinary men, like farmers, shopkeepers, and workers who trained to fight and could be called on to defend their town in an emergency. These militiamen knew the British troops were coming. That's because Patriot leader Paul Revere took his famous midnight ride to warn the town that British troops were coming. As the two groups stood face to face, British soldiers shouted orders to the militiamen. "Disperse, ye rebels, disperse, and lay down your arms." The militiamen followed the orders and began turning their backs to walk away. Then, a shot was fired. No one knows by whom. This shot would come to be known as the shot heard round the world. In the confusion and chaos, British soldiers fired into the crowd of militiamen, and within moments, several men lay dead or wounded on the green. Why might this moment make colonists more willing to keep fighting, even if it meant risking their lives? This was the first time colonial militia and British troops had faced each other and people had been killed. And to the citizens of Lexington, these were not just people. They were neighbors, friends, and family members. Many of these colonists felt betrayed because, to them, these soldiers were firing on their own people. After all, the colonists still saw themselves as British subjects. The surviving militiamen scattered as the gunfire ended. Within minutes, the British troops regrouped and continued their march toward Concord. As British troops marched on, word spread quickly through the countryside. By the time British troops reached Concord, many of the weapons they had come to seize were gone, hidden, or moved by the colonists. And just outside the town, larger groups of militia had gathered. The two sides came face to face again at a small bridge just outside Concord, known as the North Bridge. Colonial forces lined up on one side, facing British troops on the other. This time, they began to move forward, not just to stand their ground, but to push back. Shots were fired, and the British troops were forced to retreat. As the British soldiers marched back toward Boston, colonial militiamen followed them along the road, firing from behind trees, stone walls, and buildings. What began as a single confrontation had now turned into a running fight. The colonists had shifted from retreating to fighting back together. What does this suggest about their unity and what they were now willing to risk? This shift shows that colonists were beginning to see themselves as fighting for the same cause, freedom from British control. Because of that, they were more willing to work together and take greater risks, knowing they were not fighting alone. What happened here on the Lexington town green was just the beginning, but beyond this small town, bigger changes would soon unfold in cities like Boston and Philadelphia. It was in these major cities that Patriot leaders realized scattered militias would not be enough. Not long after the events at Lexington and Concord, thousands of militiamen surrounded Boston, where British troops were located. This became known as the Siege of Boston. By this point, there were many militiamen, and they had the British pinned in Boston. But these forces were still separate militias. Why might separate local militias not be enough if the colonies want to defend their freedom? While local militias could respond quickly, they were not strong enough on their own to defend the colonies in a larger conflict. Without a central command or shared strategy, it would be difficult to stand up to the British Army. Colonial leaders recognized that they would need to prepare for something bigger. So they gathered in Philadelphia to decide how to respond to the fighting. On June 14, 1775, the Second Continental Congress made the decision to create the Continental Army. What does forming a unified army suggest about how serious this conflict has become? This decision showed that colonial leaders believed that conflict had become much more serious. They were no longer preparing for small local conflicts, but for a larger and more sustained war, one that would require greater risks and commitment. By forming a unified army, the colonies were joining together to fight one of the most powerful nations in the world. This new army would unify the various colonial militias into a single, organized fighting force. The following day, Congress appointed George Washington as Commander in Chief of the Continental Army. They believed his leadership would help unite the colonies, and he traveled to Boston to organize the forces into a structured army. But forming an army was just the beginning. The real test came when they faced the British in their first major battle. In June 1775, shortly after the Continental Army was formed, colonial forces moved to high ground outside Boston. Overnight, they built defensive positions, called fortifications, on Breed's Hill, near Bunker Hill, to prepare for a possible British attack. Fortifications are structures built to protect soldiers in battle, like walls, trenches, or barriers. What might building fortifications tell us about what the colonists expected would happen next? This shows that the colonists believed a battle was coming and were preparing to defend themselves instead of trying to avoid conflict. When British leaders saw the colonial fortifications, they decided to launch a direct attack. British troops, who were well trained and experienced, moved uphill toward the colonial positions. Who would you expect to have the advantage in this battle? Why? Although the British had more training and experience, the colonists had an advantage. They were on higher ground, giving them a better view of the incoming British troops. Plus, the fortifications they had built provided them with protection, allowing them to hold their ground. The colonists were able to push back multiple British attacks before running low on ammunition. Once their supplies ran out, the colonists were forced to retreat from their position. The British ultimately took control of the hill, technically making it a victory for them. However, the battle came at a high cost. British forces suffered over 1,000 casualties, including many officers. The scale of these losses shocked British leaders. Even though the British won the battle, how does Bunker Hill show a shift in the colony's willingness to fight for freedom? Although they ultimately retreated, colonial forces proved they were willing to stand and fight against the powerful British Army. This helped build colonists' confidence that resistance was possible. At the same time, British leaders realized the conflict would not be quick or easy. Both sides now expected the fighting to continue and become more intense. Ideas about rights and freedom were no longer just being discussed, they were now being acted on through organized fighting. In just a few months, everything had changed. What began as scattered resistance had grown into an organized army. So why were the colonists ready to risk everything for their freedom? At Lexington, the violence made the conflict personal. Colonists saw friends and neighbors killed. At Concord, they fought back and began to believe that resistance could actually succeed. And at Bunker Hill, they proved they could stand and fight against the British Army, giving them confidence that they could challenge one of the most powerful forces in the world, even if it meant risking their lives. After these opening battles, more colonists were willing to take greater risks because they now believed their fight for freedom was both necessary and possible. In our next lesson, we'll head to Philadelphia where we'll see how these ideas about freedom were turned into one of the most important documents in history, the Declaration of Independence. Until next time, keep learning from America's story so you can help write its next chapter.
Hey, hey.